The sun had only just begun to climb above the acacia trees when the Masaba Poultry Farm burst into life. Roosters crowed defiantly from their perches while workers moved like clockwork among the long wooden coops, scattering feed and checking water trays. Dust clung to everything: boots, overalls, even laughter. Akinyi wiped sweat from her brow as she heaved a sack of chicken feed onto her shoulder. Though the sun wasn't at its peak yet, the heat was already turning her shirt damp. She moved with purpose, her patterned headscarf fluttering slightly as she walked. Beside her, Kato, broad-shouldered and wearing a grin that seemed permanently etched into his face, lifted his own sack with practiced ease. "You really should let me take that," he said, falling into step beside her. Akinyi rolled her eyes, her lips tugging into a smile. "I've been doing this longer than you, Kato. Don't tell me how to carry feed." "But not with arms like mine," he teased, flexing dramatically. She laughed, a warm sound that cut through the ruckus of clucking hens. Behind the storage shed, Musa stood in the shadows, stacking empty egg crates with rigid precision. His eyes, sharp and unreadable, fixed on the pair as they walked toward the main coop. His grip tightened on the crate. For weeks now, he had watched the two grow closer, saw the way Akinyi smiled more freely, laughed louder when Kato was near. It stirred something in him. Something sharp and ugly. It hadn't always been this way. Once, it was Musa and Akinyi who stayed behind after work, sharing stories beneath the mango tree by the fence. It was Musa who first showed her how to care for the incubators, who brought her roasted groundnuts wrapped in newspaper from the market. But Musa had always been careful, too careful. While Kato blazed forward with jokes and easy charm, Musa held back, waiting for the perfect time that never came. Now that time was running out. Later that day, as clouds gathered in the sky, the workers took their break under the shade of the main shelter. Akinyi and Kato sat side by side, sharing a plastic bottle of cold hibiscus tea. Kato cracked another joke and Akinyi doubled over, laughing so hard she nearly spilled the drink. Musa leaned against a coop post nearby, silent. His presence was like a shadow stretching across the sunny gathering. A chicken pecked at his boot, but he didn't move. "Something funny?" he asked suddenly, voice low but cutting. The laughter stopped. Kato looked up, surprised, while Akinyi blinked. "Just a joke, Musa," she said cautiously. "You okay?" He nodded slowly, gaze never leaving hers. "Fine. Just seems like you've got plenty of help lately." An uncomfortable pause followed. Kato stood up, brushing dust from his trousers. "We all help each other out here. That's what a team does." "Some help more than others," Musa muttered, then walked away, the crates forgotten. That night, as rain tapped against the tin roof of the workers' dormitory, Akinyi sat beneath the covered porch, arms wrapped around her knees. The events of the day played on a loop in her mind. She didn't notice Musa until he stepped into the light. "Can we talk?" he asked, voice softer now. She nodded, motioning for him to sit. He hesitated. "I guess I didn't realize how much I cared. Until I saw someone else caring too." Akinyi turned to look at him, her eyes searching. "Musa, you're a good man. But you never said anything." "Not really. I was afraid. Of ruining things. Of being too much." She reached out, placing a hand on his. "You were never too much. But you can't expect people to wait forever in silence." He swallowed hard, then gave a small nod. The moment hung there fragile, like a newly laid egg. Behind them, a rooster let out a sharp crow, breaking the tension. They both chuckled softly, and for the first time in a long while, it didn't feel like something was breaking. It felt like something was beginning. The storm from the previous night had cleared, leaving the ground soaked and the skies washed clean. The scent of wet earth clung to the morning air as the workers gathered for the day's tasks. But there was tension under the surface, like a stretched wire waiting to snap. Musa arrived earlier than usual, already feeding the broiler hens by the time others trickled in. He moved quickly, efficiently, his eyes narrowed in focus. But beneath that focus brewed a storm that hadn't passed with the rain. Akinyi entered the yard later, her boots splashing through puddles. Kato jogged to meet her, holding a banana and some roasted cassava in a plastic bag. "Figured you didn't get breakfast," he said. She smiled, touched. "Thanks, Kato." From across the yard, Musa saw the exchange. The small gesture nodded him. It wasn't just about Akinyi anymore. Kato was invading every part of the life Musa had worked to build, earning favor with the farm manager, getting the best shifts, and now winning over the only person Musa felt truly connected to. As the sun rose higher, the crew split into groups. Akinyi was assigned to the hatchery. Kato, to disinfecting the coops. Musa, in a decision that felt far from coincidental, was placed with Kato. They worked in tense silence at first, scrubbing and spraying disinfectant through the long, narrow rows. The air smelled of bleach and ammonia. Chickens clucked nervously in their cages. So Kato finally said, casually, "You and Akinyi talked last night?" Musa didn't look up. "Why?" "Just asking." "She seemed quiet this morning. Maybe she's tired of people asking questions she doesn't know answers to." Kato chuckled. "Or maybe she's tired of someone acting like she belongs to him when he never said a word until someone else came along." That hit the mark. Musa stopped scrubbing. He turned slowly. "You think this is a game?" "I think you're playing it like a sore loser." A tense pause followed. Only the sound of a leaking water pipe interrupted the silence. Musa stepped forward, face inches from Kato's. "You walk around like you've already won something. But hearts don't work like competitions, Kato. You might be loud, but you don't listen." Kato stared back, the grin gone now. "And you? You wait so long in silence the moment passes you by." The manager's voice cut through the tension from across the yard. "You two done in there yet?" Kato turned back to the coop, muttering, "This isn't over." That evening, Akinyi sat under the mango tree, watching the hens return to their nests. Her thoughts were a tangle of emotions, loyalty, guilt, and something close to exhaustion. Both men had laid their cards on the table. But love wasn't a battle to be won. And she wasn't a prize to be claimed. When Musa approached, she didn't flinch. When Kato joined minutes later, she didn't rise. Instead, she stood, facing them both. "I'm not here to choose between who shouts louder," she said firmly. "This farm needs teamwork, not tantrums. You're both good men, but neither of you owns my affection. I'll decide that for myself in my time." Musa looked down. Kato nodded, lips pressed thin. The sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the yard. The feathers had settled, but fire still lingered in the embers. Akinyi walked the fields alone, early morning dew soaking into her boots as birds stirred in the baobab trees. The sounds of the poultry yard were still distant, giving her space to think. For days now, the weight of two men's hopes had hung around her neck like a collar she hadn't asked to wear. She thought of Musa quiet, dependable, his emotions buried beneath layers of restraint. His confession had been heartfelt, long overdue. There had been a time, she admitted to herself, when she'd hoped he would say those words. But that moment had come and gone like a rain cloud that never poured. Then there was Kato. Unapologetically forward, his laughter contagious, his presence like sunlight through clouded glass. He didn't hide how he felt. He didn't wait. He simply gave affection, attention, care. But did Akinyi want the fire he offered, or had she simply been drawn to its warmth? She paused by the fence that overlooked the hilly terrain beyond the farm. Somewhere in the distance, children were playing. The wind tugged gently at her scarf. "I am not a path for someone else to choose," she whispered aloud. Not anymore. That day, she made her decision, but kept it close, like an egg not yet ready to hatch. She needed one more moment, one more truth to be sure. The afternoon began as any other. Workers tended to the chickens while the manager prepped the delivery truck for a bulk order headed to a Nairobi hotel. Everything had to run smoothly. The hotel's order was massive, and a single mishap would mean penalties for the farm. Kato was in charge of loading. Musa assigned to quality checks. Akinyi oversaw the packaging. The tension simmered beneath every word exchanged. "This crate's not sealed properly," Musa said, holding one out. Kato shot him a look. "Then seal it. You've got hands, don't you?" Akinyi, clipboard in hand, stepped between them. "We don't have time for this. Just fix it and move on." But the damage was already done. As Kato climbed into the back of the truck to rearrange a stack of crates, one of the birds squawked violently. Musa stepped forward, and in that instant, the stack of crates behind Kato shifted. "Ayo! Watch out!" someone shouted. Too late. A stack of 10 full crates tipped toward Kato. He stumbled, caught off guard, and fell from the truck bed. He hit the ground hard, groaning as the crates crashed down around him, eggs shattering, feathers flying. Panic swept the yard. Akinyi rushed to his side. "Kato, are you okay?" Blood trickled from a gash near his brow. His leg was bent awkwardly. Musa stood frozen, eyes wide, the realization dawning that the crates had not been secured by him. Later, the manager's fury rang across the yard. The hotel order was ruined. Kato was taken to a nearby clinic. And Musa? He was suspended pending an internal review. Akinyi sat by the empty truck bed as dusk fell. She no longer needed to decide between two men. One had lit a fire in her. The other had walked too long in the dark until the light burned them both. She had lost more than affection today. She had lost trust. In both of them. Kato lay in a stiff hospital bed, staring at the ceiling. The rhythmic beep of the monitor echoed in the sterile room like a metronome of frustration. A light bandage covered the cut on his forehead, and his leg was wrapped in a temporary cast. The doctor had said he'd walk again within a few weeks, but that wasn't what troubled him. It was the silence. Akinyi hadn't come. He wasn't angry. Not at her. But in the quiet moments, he thought of the way she looked at Musa before the accident, how her expression had shifted from concern to something heavier. Disappointment. Maybe even fear. He wondered if she blamed him for pushing too hard, for rushing into her life with the same speed that now had him lying still. Suspension. Meanwhile, Musa sat outside his family's modest house at the edge of town, staring into the orange dusk. His younger sister was frying plantains inside, the smell thick in the air, but Musa didn't notice. He replayed every second before the fall, the tension, the snapped words, the shifting crates. He hadn't pushed them, but he hadn't checked them either. His anger had blinded him, made him careless. He hadn't just let Kato fall. He had let himself fall too. When the suspension notice was handed to him, Musa hadn't argued. The guilt had already taken root. And now, with each hour that passed, it grew heavier. Akinyi's reckoning. At the farm, Akinyi walked the rows of hens alone. The work crew was quieter than usual, the air thick with rumor. No one asked her what happened. No one had to. They'd seen enough. She had once thought she stood between two men. But now she realized she stood apart from them both. Kato, despite his charm, had challenged everything too fast, leaving no room for her to grow. Musa, with all his silent longing, had failed to act until it was too late. And both, in their own way, had let ego come before care. Now she was left to pick up the pieces. Of trust. Of work. Of herself. That evening, Akinyi returned to the mango tree, carrying 3 envelopes. One addressed to the farm manager with her promotion proposal. One to Musa. One to Kato. Each note was different, but carried the same truth. Her path was hers to walk. Not through fire. Not through feathers. But forward. The letters. To Kato. You gave me laughter when I needed it most. And your heart was never a secret to me. But love without patience is like a chick born too soon, it cannot survive. Take this time to heal. For you, not for me. To Musa. You taught me stillness. But sometimes, stillness becomes fear in disguise. I hope you find the courage to speak your truths before they grow too heavy to carry. Weeks later, Kato returned to the farm with a limp. Musa's suspension was lifted, but he kept his distance, now quieter than ever. Akinyi stood taller than before. She no longer lingered at the center of their stares. She moved with clarity, her focus on the birds, the business, the future. The two men sometimes passed one another in silence, not as enemies, but as two men who had both loved the same woman and lost more than her in the process. 1 year later on the Masaba Poultry Farm, the sun still rose faithfully over the fields, gilding the coops in gold. The chickens clucked, The workers hummed through their morning routine, and the scent of maize mash lingered in the breeze. But much had changed. Akinyi now walked the farm as assistant operations manager, clipboard in hand, boots laced tight, a Bluetooth earpiece clipped to her scarf. The farm had expanded, new pens built, a deal secured with a Nairobi supermarket chain, and digital record-keeping introduced under her watch. She had grown into the space leadership required, firm yet fair, compassionate but uncompromising. Some said she was becoming the backbone of Masaba Farm. She smiled more easily now. Not because someone made her smile, but because she had earned it. After returning from his suspension, Musa chose a quieter path. He requested reassignment to the breeding incubators, away from the daily bustle and clamor. It suited him. There, he worked with precision, monitoring temperatures, candling eggs, calculating hatch rates. He and Akinyi spoke occasionally, professional, polite, and never quite personal. But it was peaceful. There was no tension now, only mutual respect forged from what had burned and passed. Musa had begun attending night classes in agricultural science. He was learning to lead quietly but surely. Sometimes he passed the mango tree and paused, staring at the spot where everything had nearly begun. He didn't regret loving her. He only regretted not learning how to speak when it mattered most. Kato returned for a few months, limping at first, then with a stronger stride. But something in him had shifted. He no longer flirted with every new hire, no longer filled silence with jokes. Eventually, he left the farm, took a job with a poultry feed distributor that covered 5 counties. Word got back now and then he was doing well, driving from village to village in a bright red pickup, giving seminars on feed ratios and animal health. He sent Akinyi a postcard once with a photo of Lake Victoria. Still laughing. Still learning. You were right to walk forward. She never wrote back, but she kept the card in her desk drawer. The old mango tree still stood, quiet and weathered. Sometimes workers rested beneath it during breaks. Sometimes not. Its branches no longer bore the weight of a love triangle or whispered confessions. Now it simply gave shade. Akinyi passed it often, not with longing, but with gratitude. It had seen a fire. And like the farm, like the people, it had survived.